Your mind can heal your life. Buddhist wisdom for emotional freedom in old age. The quiet weight we carry. There are burdens we carry that no one sees. Not in our hands, but behind our smiles. Not in our posture, but somewhere deeper, in the way we breathe or forget to. Sometimes it arrives like winter, quiet and slow, until one day we realize we've been cold for a very long time. A memory that never got closure. A fear that never got named. A sadness that disguised itself so well, it became part of our personality. You sit by the same window in the same chair as light pours in just like yesterday. But something inside you feels unfamiliar. And in that moment of stillness, a question begins to whisper, not loudly but insistently. Can I let this go? Can I truly heal what has lived in me for so long? They told us that time heals, that wisdom brings peace. But what if that's only half the truth? What if healing isn't about forgetting, but about remembering differently? The Buddha once taught, nothing is fixed, not the mind, not the heart, not even the story we've told ourselves for decades. So if you feel the weight of something unspoken, stay with me. Because this is not a journey of effort, but of awareness. And presence, in its truest form, asks only this. Can you sit with what is without turning away? Let us begin, gently, together. There is a peculiar kind of hunger that few people talk about. Not the hunger for food, nor for praise, power, or possessions, but the quiet craving for emotional states we've known for far too long. Sadness, bitterness, anxiety. We say we want peace, yet somehow we keep circling back to the storm. It's not because we're broken. It's because the storm feels like home. You see, the mind tells stories, but the body? The body remembers patterns. If you've lived for years on edge, resentful, restless, tense, your nervous system begins to seek that state. Not because it wants to suffer, but because it has mistaken suffering for safety. Like an old song on repeat in the background of your life. You don't even notice it anymore. But without it, the silence feels unfamiliar. This is what we call emotional addiction. An unconscious attachment to pain that has defined us for so long, we no longer know who we are without it. A woman once whispered to me, almost apologetically, I think I've been angry for 20 years. I don't even remember why anymore. But without it, I feel lost. Her story is not rare. Perhaps you've met someone like this. Or perhaps, on a quiet evening, you've met this part of yourself in the mirror. The unease that arrives even when life is calm. The tendency to snap, to hold on, to relive. Even when the past is long gone. The Buddha said, you will not be punished for your anger. You will be punished by your anger. And what a punishment it is. To live inside the echo of old emotions. To let your present be shaped by wounds that belong to yesterday. But here is a gentle truth. These emotions are not your enemies. They are messengers. Flickers of stories that haven't found closure. Signals from the body asking, can we release this now? The danger begins when we mistake these emotions for identity. We say, I am anxious. You are not anxiety. You are the sky. Anxiety is just passing weather. So how do we unhook ourselves? Not through shame, but through awareness. Imagine sitting on a quiet hilltop, watching the ocean tide. You don't fight it. You just observe. This is mindfulness. Noticing, without clinging. Seeing, without becoming. There's a story from the Buddhist sutras about a man struck by a poisoned arrow. Instead of removing it, he insists on knowing who shot it, why, and with what. All the while, the poison spreads. So many of us do the same. We hold on to our anger, our grief, our guilt, demanding answers, justice, explanations. But the healing begins when we no longer need the story to justify the pain. When we simply choose to set it down. And no, it's not easy. At first, it may feel like loss. Like standing at the edge of a cliff without your old armor. But stay with it. Because beyond that discomfort lies a quiet freedom. Find that says, I am not my sadness. I am not my past. I am the awareness behind it all. To anyone who says, but I've felt this way for too long, I offer this. A field covered in snow for many winters may forget what spring feels like. But when the warmth comes, it doesn't arrive with force. It arrives with light. And so it is with us. Not with blame, but with breath. Not with resistance, but with a quiet willingness to see clearly. Because this chain, though invisible, is not unbreakable. There are wounds that leave no scar, no blood, no bruise, only a tightening in the chest when the room grows silent, only the way your spine stiffens at sudden voices, only the breath that never quite reaches the bottom of your lungs. You may not know where they came from. You may not even remember the moment they began, but your body does. You see, time may erase the memory from your mind, but the body, in its loyalty, never forgets. That argument 2 decades ago, that betrayal you buried and never dared speak of again, that subtle erosion of joy that came not from a single moment, but from 1,000 small ones. They live on, not as thoughts, but as posture, not as words, but as patterns of breath and tension. In Buddhist teaching, there's a term, vasana. It means the trace, an imprint left by experience on the subtle body and mind. These impressions, if not gently seen and released, become silent architects of our reality. They shape how we feel, how we react, even what we believe we deserve. Modern science tells the same story in different words. Every intense emotion, especially pain, leaves a chemical fingerprint. The body floods with cortisol. The nervous system braces. Muscles lock. And if this becomes the norm, the body lives as though the danger never ended. Like a loyal guard dog, it stays on alert long after the threat is gone. Even when the house is safe, the door is locked, the world is quiet, it still growls at shadows. And the saddest part? The mind may have moved on, but the body was never told, it's over. You're safe now. The Buddha once said, holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent to throw it at another. You are the one who gets burned. But what if that coal has been glowing in your chest for years? What if you forgot you were even holding it? There's a story of a man who carried a heavy pack of stones through a forest. He believed that someone somewhere ahead would tell him why he had to carry it. But no one ever came. And one day, exhausted and alone, he finally asked the wind, "Why do I still bear this weight?" And the wind whispered, "Because you never thought to put it down." So how do we put it down? Not by thinking differently, but by being differently. Healing is not a purely mental process. It is a full-body return. A return to presence, to softness, to breath. When you place your hand on your heart in stillness, you're not just calming your thoughts. You're whispering to the body, "You no longer have to protect me. I am home." This is why ancient practices, from Buddhist breathwork to trauma-informed meditation, begin with the body. Because if the body does not feel safe, the soul cannot rest. A monk once said, "You cannot step into peace while dragging the weight of every old battle." And yet many try. They seek joy while their shoulders are still clenched. They speak of forgiveness while their breath remains shallow. But here's the miracle. When the body finally believes the war is over, it begins to shift. Hormones balance. Breath deepens. Sleep returns. And joy, real, grounded, quiet joy, rises like the morning sun. Not dramatic, not loud, but steady. The kind of joy that doesn't need a reason. The kind that sits with you in the stillness and says, I'm here, and I'm not leaving. Because to awaken the soul is not to deny the pain. It is to free ourselves from its grip. To gently say, thank you, body, for carrying me this far. Now let's walk lighter. And yet, even as the body softens, a deeper question begins to surface. If healing can happen in the body, can it also happen in the mind? Can the stories we've told ourselves for years about who we are, what we fear, what we deserve, be rewritten? In the next chapter, we'll explore how meditation doesn't just calm the mind, it reshapes it. Let's continue. There comes a quiet season in life, when the days behind us stretch longer than the ones ahead. And in that soft hush, a question begins to rise. Is this it? Is this the shape my life must take from now on? For many, the answer seems fixed. After all, haven't these patterns of thought, this doubt, this worry, this resentment, been with us for decades? Like old companions, like walls we stopped noticing because they've always been there. But what if those walls were never real? What if they were only practiced? In Buddhism, the mind is not seen as a stone statue, unchanging and set. It is a river, shaped by attention, flowing where we choose to place our gaze. Where the water runs most often, a groove forms. And over time, that groove becomes the mind's default. But here's the miracle. The river can be redirected. Modern neuroscience now echoes this truth. Through the lens of neuroplasticity, we know, no matter our age, the brain can change. New neural pathways can be built. New reactions rehearsed. New ways of being imagined, then lived. But the key is not effort. The key is repetition, intentional, gentle, daily. And this is where meditation enters. Not as escape, but as return. When you sit in stillness, not to silence the mind but to witness it, you are stepping off the old path. Each breath is a gentle revolution. Each moment of presence is a tiny act of rebellion against the habits that no longer serve you. But let's be honest, stillness is not always peaceful at first. You sit, you breathe, and suddenly your mind is loud. What's for dinner? Why did she say that in 1998? Did I pay the bill? Why does my back ache? Is this even working? It feels like chaos, like monkeys flinging thoughts through your head. But here's what no one tells you. That chaos is the beginning of transformation. Because every time you notice that you've wandered, and gently, kindly bring yourself back to the breath, you are no longer reacting. You are choosing. That tiny act of return, it rewires you. Over time, the noise softens, the monkey settles, and something ancient awakens within you. A stillness, a spaciousness, a self untouched by fear. The Buddha said, what we think, we become. But in meditation, we go further. We don't just think, we feel the future we wish to embody. We breathe kindness. We rehearse gratitude. We sit with love, not as something to receive, but something to remember. And bit by bit, the mind stops reacting from the wounds of yesterday and begins responding from the wisdom of now. There's a beautiful Zen image. The mind is a garden. If anger and fear are weeds, then presence, self-compassion, and breath are water. And slowly, the flowers return. Not because we fought the weeds, but because we tended to what could grow instead. And yet, even as the mind begins to change, there is one more gateway we must cross. One more place where the old wounds hide. It is not the mind. It is not even the body. It is the heart. In the next chapter, we step into the sacred space where true healing begins, not with logic, but with love. Where the rhythm of our heart begins to whisper, "You are safe now. You can rest." There is a sacred intelligence that lives beneath thought, not in the mind, but in the heart. It does not analyze. It does not argue. It simply knows. It knows when something is true, even before we can explain why. It knows when we're safe, even before the mind lets go of its fear. And most powerfully, it knows when we are ready to heal. For many of us, especially as we grow older, healing becomes a checklist. Pills, appointments, scans. But deep down, we sense what medicine sometimes misses. True healing does not always happen on a table. Sometimes, it happens in silence, in stillness, in the moment when the heart, after years of bracing, finally softens. You see, the heart is not just an organ. It holds rhythm, memory, language, and modern science is beginning to reveal what Buddhism has whispered for centuries. When the heart finds coherence, a steady, harmonious rhythm, it sends a message to the brain. We are safe now. And when that message is received, the whole body exhales. The nervous system rebalances. The mind quiets. The body opens, not to defense, but to repair. But here's the key. This coherence doesn't come from logic. It comes from feeling, from gratitude, from forgiveness, from compassion, and most tenderly, from love. Not the love that demands or fears, but the quiet kind. The kind that says, "I see you. I accept you. You can rest now." In Buddhist tradition, there is a practice called metta, loving-kindness meditation. It begins with a whisper to the self. May I be safe. May I be well. May I be at peace. Then, like ripples on a still pond, it expands. To loved ones, to strangers, even to those who once caused harm. It sounds simple, but its effects are profound. One veteran, hardened by years of war and trauma, once sat in a meditation circle, not expecting much. But when asked to place his hand on his heart and breathe, something broke open. He cried, not from grief, but from release. Later he said, "It felt like my heart remembered how to feel again." That is coherence. That is healing. And it is not mystical. It is biological grace. But love doesn't always come easily. Many ask, how can I forgive when they never apologized? How can I feel love when I still feel betrayed? They are fair questions, but they keep us bound. Because forgiveness isn't about the other. It's about liberation. It is not about excusing the pain, but unburdening the self who has carried it. The Buddha says, hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This is the eternal law. When we forgive, not with words but with breath, the heart hears it. It relaxes. And when the heart relaxes, the body listens. Inflammation lessens. Hormones shift. The immune system strengthens. Because the body finally knows. It no longer has to prepare for war. This is where healing begins. Not in the brain, but in the soft space beneath your palm. In the wordless rhythm of your own beating heart. Not because everything is perfect, but because you are finally ready to stop fighting the past. So sit with your heart today, not to fix it, but to feel it. Breathe into it like a prayer. Let the quiet love rise. Not loud, not dramatic, just real. Because the door to healing does not open with force. It opens with a whisper. And when the heart opens, something else becomes possible. Not just freedom from the past, but freedom to create something entirely new. In the next chapter, we'll explore the shift from reaction to creation. How to become not just a survivor of your story, but the conscious author of who you are becoming. Let us step forward. There is a quiet moment, sometimes gentle, sometimes aching, when we suddenly see it. Much of our life has been lived in reaction, not in choice, but in response to wounds we didn't mean to carry, patterns we never meant to repeat, walls we built not for design, but for survival. We didn't intend to build an identity from pain, but over time, the sadness stayed too long. The fear got comfortable, and what once protected us became who we thought we were. Someone once told me, "I've been bracing for something bad for 30 years, and nothing ever comes. But I can't stop waiting." And another whispered, "I don't know who I'd be without my sadness. It's lived in me for so long, it feels like home." These are not rare confessions. They are deeply human. And yet, somewhere within you, something still whispers, there's more. Not just the freedom to let go, but the freedom to create. In Buddhist teaching, there is a radical idea. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind them. That means you are not your past, not your anger, not your fear, not even your mistakes. You are the artist, the canvas, and the breath before the first stroke. So how do we begin? With recognition. We begin by noticing. Every time we tense, react, retreat. Not with shame, but with gentle curiosity. Is this who I really am? Or is this who I've practiced being? Because every reaction is a rehearsal, a neural groove worn down by repetition. But just as a path can be walked into existence, it can also be walked back. Imagine standing at a fork in the road. One path is familiar, well-trodden, smooth with your footprints. The other, barely visible, overgrown, but it leads somewhere new. Every time you choose presence instead of panic, peace instead of protection, you take a step on that new path. And here's the miracle. The brain follows. When you think a new thought, I am enough. When you feel a new feeling, calm instead of defense. When you act from love instead of pain, your biology changes. New pathways form. New habits emerge. New emotions arise, ones you may not have felt in years. At first, it may feel uncomfortable. The old self will whisper, "Be careful. Don't trust this. You're safer when you're angry." And yet, that discomfort is not danger. It's transformation. It's the cocoon stretching before the wings unfold. The Buddha said, "Each morning we are born again. What we do today is what matters most." So start small. Speak to yourself with kindness. Imagine your day not as something to survive, but as a canvas to color. Ask yourself, if I were already free, how would I breathe? How would I speak to myself? How would I walk through this moment? Then live into that version. Not perfectly, but sincerely. And in time, your body will believe you. Your life will mirror it back. Because building a new self isn't about erasing the old. It's about no longer feeding it, no longer rehearsing its stories, and gently, moment by moment, stepping into a self that was always waiting, beneath the fear, beneath the pain, beneath the noise. But now, after all we've uncovered, there's something else waiting. Not a new idea, not a new technique, but a return to the quietest truth of all. That healing was never about becoming someone else. It was always about coming home. In the final chapter, we return, not to where we began, but to ourselves. Lighter, softer, wiser. Let's take the last step together. And so, we return, not as we were, not with the same weight in our chest, or the same restlessness in our breath, but with something softer, something quieter, something truer. We began this journey asking whether healing was still possible, whether change, deep and lasting, could happen even after all these years. We've been told that time heals, that age brings peace. But we've also learned something deeper. Healing does not come from time. It comes from presence. And peace is not found by escaping the past, but by making peace with it. You are not your patterns. You are not your sadness. You are not the story that's been looping in your mind for decades. You are the one who notices the story, the one who, breath by breath, has the power to write a new one. Meditation is not about perfection. It's not about silencing the mind. It's not even about peace at first. It's about returning to this moment, to this body, to this heart. It is the medicine only you can offer yourself. Not from force, but from stillness. Not with blame, but with breath. Every time you choose presence over reaction, kindness over self-judgment, awareness over autopilot, you are performing a quiet revolution. The Buddhist says, you only lose what you cling to. So perhaps the question is not, can I let go? But what would it feel like to no longer need to hold on? What would your life look like if you no longer carried the fear, the anger, the story? Who would you be without the armor? Who are you underneath it all? Because healing is not about forgetting. It's about remembering with peace, honoring the pain without being ruled by it, thanking the wound, and then, finally, letting it close. So take one breath, just one, not the breath of survival, but the breath of arrival, the breath of someone who is coming home. And if something in these words stirred something in you, if a door quietly opened where there once was only a wall, then don't keep it to yourself. Share it. There is someone out there who has been carrying a quiet sorrow, a quiet fear, a quiet ache, and they too are wondering, is it too late for me? Let them know. It's never too late to soften, never too late to begin again, never too late to come home to yourself. If something in this message touched your heart, if it reminded you of a truth you once knew but forgot, or simply gave you permission to rest for the first time in a long while, then we invite you to keep walking with us. This path is not about fixing, it's about remembering. And here, we move slowly, we breathe deeply, we listen not just to teachings, but to the quiet wisdom within. So if you feel called, subscribe to Quiet Wisdom. Leave a comment below, not just to share your thoughts, but to remind someone else that they're not alone. Maybe even share this video with someone who's been carrying a silent burden for too long, someone who needs to know. Healing is not about who you were, it's about who you are becoming. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being present. And may you always remember, you were never broken. You were only waiting for the moment you chose to return to yourself. We'll be here when you're ready, boys.